Two revolutions shook the world in 1776. For those of you who live in the United States and in the days when you used to study American history, you'll know the first one was the American Revolution that started in Boston with the Tea Party. The other revolution that shook the world, which is not so well reported in American history classes, was that in 1776, Richard Arkwright built the first mill, water-driven mill, in Nottingham, England. This was an industrial revolution, and it was the beginning of the Industrial Revolution that transformed the world in a way that was far deeper, sorry for you Republican right-wingers, than the American Revolution ever did, because the Industrial Revolution changed everything. The way we think, the kind of politics we have, the kind of media we have, the kind of economy we have, the kind of industry we have, the amount of junk that we have, the consumer society, all of this was driven by the Industrial Revolution. And without the Industrial Revolution, we would still be living in an agrarian society. Prior to the Industrial Revolution, 85% of the population of this country worked in agriculture. In the sweat of thy brow shalt thou eat thy bread, it says in Genesis. But the Industrial Revolution, the post-industrial revolution today, only 3% of the population actually works in agriculture, and we end up getting our bread from the local, actually now we get it from Fresh Direct, which means it gets delivered directly to our house. That Industrial Revolution flipped over the world, and it was irresistible, and everything that it touched, essentially it destroyed. Joseph Schumpeter, the Hungarian economist, said that the coined the phrase creative destruction, in that new industries come along and they destroy everything that was in its path. And the Industrial Revolution certainly did that. The world we live in today is entirely a product of that Industrial Revolution. Manufacturing, industry, big things, cars, McDonald's, factories, all the crap you have in your house that you don't need, television sets. This was the Industrial Revolution. We are now at a moment of transition as seminal as that 1776 transition, except we are moving from the Industrial Revolution into the digital Internet revolution. And just like the Industrial Revolution, the digital Internet revolution is going to come along and wipe out everything. Everything we know, everything we think we know is going to be destroyed by this Internet digital revolution that we are in the very early stages of. I don't know if you saw that Bloomberg today published an article, a very interesting piece, that said that essentially the retail business is dying. 1,400 stores are closing this year. More are going later. I have the list here. Radio Shack, Payless, The Limited, Family, Christian, whatever the hell that is. H. Gregg, Wet Seal, stuff I'd never heard of. Macy's is closing down their stores. The reason all these stores are closing and the reason that Main Street is going to be emptied out and people in the shopping center of business are going to be out of business is because everybody buys stuff online. We all buy stuff online because it's convenient. Every time you go and click on Amazon, you essentially fire another store clerk, you close down another store, and you participate in this irresistible drive that the Internet change is bringing upon society. For those of us in the television and video business, we think we have lived in a pretty secure world. We've watched television, we've watched newspapers being destroyed by the Internet, because as soon as Craigslist came along, it ate up the business, and the rest of it, of course, all went to Facebook. Places like Facebook and YouTube essentially steal the content, and they put it on and charge for advertising against it, and that's what they get their revenue from. But in the television business, we felt pretty secure so far. Those days are over, because what the Internet did to music, stealing it, essentially Napster, beginning with Napster, and then simply eviscerating the music business so that nobody. I read somewhere if you get 1 million live streams was it? Shit, I can't remember which one it was. One of the main live streaming things, the person who created the content gets $400, which is absolutely pornographic, but that's what the Internet has done to the music business. It did the same thing to the newspaper business, the journalism business, and now it is about to destroy the television business unless we get our act together and figure out how to counter this thing. The Industrial Revolution and the whole Schumpeterian notion of creative destruction has two aspects to it. There's destruction and there's creation. And new industries are being created all the time, except there's no model for them because nobody knows how they work, because there was never a model for them before. When factories first came along, nobody knew how factories should be organized because no one had ever made one before, and it took some time to work the whole thing out. Right now, those of us in the content creation business are like the lace makers in Nottingham in the 18th century. We're sitting at home, we're making our little things together, we have little businesses, we have a cameraman, we have an idea, we go make a film, we put it together, it's enormously time consuming, and then we either get commissioned by a network to make stuff, or we make it ourselves and we try and sell it. This is like the lace makers in Nottingham, making one pair of stockings every 3 weeks and selling them and thinking they had a pretty good life. When the factories came along, suddenly they could make 5,000 pairs of stockings every day, and all those people making them at home were driven out of business or forced to go into the factories. The factories today are places like Facebook and Google and Amazon because they consume all the stuff that we make and they don't give hardly anything back to those of us who make the content. This is a thing that for content creators sucks, in a word. But the advantage is that this same technology that has destroyed or is destroying the conventional means of distribution also is giving us an opportunity. Because these smartphones, like the ones that I'm broadcasting to you, have done away with the need for having to deal with NBC or PBS or the New York Times or anybody like that, because this gives us all the tools that we need to participate, create the content, distribute the content on our own. When I started in the television business, a broadcast television video camera cost like $80,000 or $100,000, and of course, nobody in their right mind could go out and buy one and say, well, I'm going to be an independent broadcaster. And even if you did, you needed that transmission tower and you needed that FCC license to get your stuff into people's homes. That's what the media business is all about. Putting stuff in people's homes and then figuring out a way to monetize the act that they either like or they don't like your stuff. Into 10 years ago, you had to participate. You had to partner with a cable channel or an MSO, if you were in the cable business, or a network to get your stuff into people's homes. The internet, miraculously, you don't have to do that anymore. And also, you don't have to spend $100,000 for a broadcast quality camera, because this sucker in front of me cost like $400 for an iPhone, and it shoots, it cuts, it puts in graphics, it puts in music, it broadcasts. I read today, and we'll be publishing this on VJ World at thevj.com, which I hope you'll visit and join. It's not a lot of money. We will be publishing a television station in Alaska that remarkably is not only entirely iPhone driven, it's entirely citizen journalism driven. Well, citizen journalism, that's a scary thing to some people, but in all honesty, that's where all books come from. J.K. Rowling, citizen journalist. We're all citizen journalists, and we all have the responsibility to participate. So as the Industrial Revolution completely changed the way that stuff was made and distributed and all the ramifications that came with it, so the digital internet revolution is also going to completely change the way that stuff is made and distributed and all the ramifications that go along with it. Now, you can either be a victim and get buried by the tidal wave and go, oh my God, I'm losing my job, I don't know what to do, I'm an unemployed journalist, I'm an unemployed videographer, I'm getting paid nothing. Or you can understand, to some extent, as best we can, where this thing is inevitably leading and get ahead of the curve and take control of it. And the control, to my mind, is that we the content makers, we manufacture the lifeblood of all these multi-billion-dollar, and they are enormous, new industries. The most powerful, most potent, wealthiest companies today are people like Google, Amazon, Facebook, YouTube. They are content purveyors. They essentially take our content and then they put it up and they sell advertising against it, and that's where their vast revenues come from. The difference is, if you worked for CBS, CBS did the same thing. They sold advertising, but then they took the revenue from that advertising and they paid for the content. Facebook and YouTube, they don't pay for the content. They get it for free, like I'm doing right here. But that doesn't mean that we can't change this, because we're at the beginning of this revolution. So as content creators, we must take control of our content. We must own our content. This is really an IP issue. And we must be rigorous in licensing it. Facebook wants to use it, great, they have to pay for it. New York Times wants to use it, great, they have to pay for it. Even if they pay a minimal amount, because there's 5 billion people online, you can aggregate vast income. This is a complete re-architecting. It's not a minor little fix. It's not like, oh, here's a good job you can get over at this new website. This is a complete rethinking of how the relationship between content creators and advertising sales, which is what really Facebook and Google are all about, interrelate. And right now, it's 100% on the advertising sales control side and nothing on our side. So we have to get our act together here, and we have to kind of organize, like unionize, like people did in factories after Richard Arkwright started to screw them over in child labor and stuff like that. We have to organize, and I wouldn't say union, but I think we have to create kind of cooperatives of content creators and hold back on our stuff, or at least own part of it. This is a radical transformation in the way that content has been organized, but it begins with the idea that you have to wrap your head around the fact that places like NBC, sorry to say, are ultimately dead. They're ultimately dead because the technology has rendered they were the gatekeepers. They had the frequency from the FCC. They had the $100 million invested in their studios and stuff. The technology has obviated that. It rendered it pointless. It takes some time for this stuff to shake down, but if you look at the technology objectively, you can see that that's the truth, that all the stuff that they have and the edge that they have and their barrier to entry is gone. And the new players here now are the people who control access to this internet, because this is where people are going to get their stuff from. So if they can recreate the world, so can we. Take a look at VJ World. We're going to be talking about this all week. And please send your ideas. We're happy to participate, and we need your cooperation. Thanks for tuning in. See you tomorrow.